Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God, and this is Mark. Check her out.
So hi guys, how you doing? As most of you probably know, I am a massive Pixar fan. Pixar is actually my favourite entertainment company. I prefer it to Disney, believe it or not, even though I'm very aware that Disney and Pixar are basically the same now. I mean, they're friends. Pixar films have still always been my favourites. And I want to know what the ultimate Pixar film is. But I don't just want to decide this myself. I actually did a video like this about 6 years ago where I just told you what I thought were the top 10 best Pixar films, and I kind of rated them each from number 10 to number 1. It's a very old video. I think it's from like 2014, but if you do want to watch it, I'll leave the link down below. But of course, since then a lot more films have come out, and there are just so many right now. And in fact, at this moment of filming in July of 2020, there are currently 22 Pixar films out there. And when I say films, I obviously mean feature-length movies. So I thought I would go on Instagram, because Instagram is like where I spend half my life on these days. Put each of these films against each other and have you guys vote on them, and then the winners of this round will then go to the next round, and then we'll put them against each other, and then we'll continue like this until we're left with only one Pixar film, which will be the ultimate best Pixar film according to you guys. So I have the full list of all the Pixar films here with me, and I've thought a lot about which ones I should put against each other, and I think that the way I've done it is pretty reasonable. Like, for instance, I think it would be quite stupid to put like a very, very popular and well-loved Pixar film against one that I'm aware not many people love. So I've tried to kind of balance it out and make sure it's as fair as possible, basically. So before I put these Instagram stories up for people to vote, I'm gonna obviously have to explain it, because I want people to vote carefully. Like, I want people to take this seriously, and I want to make sure as many people as possible actually do vote on these polls. So I'm gonna do a quick Instagram story first to kind of present the series of polls that are about to happen on my stories. Hello, would you like to help me with a little bit of research for an upcoming video that I've got? Of course you do. Well, it's very simple. All you have to do is just vote in the upcoming polls. Thank you. Right, that is done. Okay, well, now that I've got that out of the way, I'm gonna send the polls one by one. Obviously, like I said, there's 22 films, so there'll be 11 polls initially, putting, you know, each of them against the other, if that makes sense. And I'll wait the whole 24 hours to see what the final result of the polls are before I take them to the next round. So this video is like gonna take a while to make, so make sure to give it a like if you're enjoying this, because effort was put into it and you guys are a part of it. So the first two films I've put together are Inside Out versus Coco. Now this is quite a difficult one for myself as well, so I thought hopefully it's a just and fair one to kind of put against each other. Okay, well, the first one's sent. The next one I've put Finding Nemo against Wally. Right, that's sent as well. The next one is Up versus Ratatouille. Again, for me personally, I would definitely go for Ratatouille, but I know that Up is a very well-loved film as well, so hopefully, again, I feel like it's quite a fair comparison, if that makes sense. Next, we have The Incredibles, the original Incredibles, versus Brave. Again, I feel like this is quite a fair comparison, hopefully. I have a feeling The Incredibles is definitely going to win this, though I don't know why. Brave doesn't seem to be as well-loved, whereas a lot of people do love The Incredibles. I myself probably would lean more towards Brave, but again, this isn't about me, it's about you guys. The next one is The Good Dinosaur versus Onward. Now with Onward, I feel like quite a few people might have not seen it yet, because it came out just before this whole pandemic got out of control and countries went into lockdown and everything, so I got lucky to see it just before all of this happened. I saw it in the cinema, but I'm also aware that Onward is now on Disney Plus, so maybe some people have managed to catch it on Disney Plus, but I don't know. My reasoning behind this comparison was because Onward, like I said, not many people have managed to see it yet, in my opinion, and The Good Dinosaur was quite a similar situation. Obviously not that there was another pandemic a few years ago, but when The Good Dinosaur came out, I think it came out in 2015. It came out at the end of the same year that Inside Out came out, so I think most people just kind of focused on Inside Out and not many people cared or bothered to even go and see The Good Dinosaur. Pretty sure it's actually to this day Pixar's least successful film in terms of how much money they made out of it. Although to be fair, Onward might have beaten it by now. I have to say I really like The Good Dinosaur, by the way. In fact, I think I preferred The Good Dinosaur to Onward. Quite an underrated Pixar film in my opinion. Anyway, the next one is A Bug's Life versus Cars. Again, for me, I would 100% go for Bug's Life. It's very nostalgic for me. I watched it a lot as a child. It came out when I was a child. I used to love it. And Cars, I've seen just once. I think I only saw it when it first came out and I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I am aware that a lot of people do love Cars, so I actually have a feeling, a really weird feeling, that Cars is going to win this one. Now this is a massive one. This is Toy Story 1, the original Pixar film, the very first feature-length movie that Pixar ever made, and incidentally my favorite film of all time. And I'm putting this against Monsters Inc. because I feel like if anything were to beat Toy Story, it probably would be Monsters Inc. because Monsters Inc. is also quite an early film in terms of when it came out. It's not very recent, and also when it first came out, a lot of people really loved it, so I really love it as well, to be honest. Like, even though obviously my heart is always going to be with Toy Story, I do love Monsters Inc. a lot. We're going into sequel territory now, so the next one I've just put Cars 2 versus Cars 3. I don't think I've seen either of these. I might have watched a bit of Cars 2 again when it first came out on like TV, but I don't really remember it. And Cars 3 I'm pretty sure I've never watched, so it'll be interesting. I genuinely have no idea which of these is going to win. Next we have Toy Story 2 versus The Incredibles 2. This is going to be an interesting one as well. I think both are very worthy and good sequels. I enjoyed Incredibles 2. It actually came out not far from my birthday 2 years ago, so it just reminds me of my 28th birthday because it was around that time that I went to see it in the cinema with my family. And Toy Story 2, I mean, I love the Toy Story franchise, so for me I feel like Toy Story 2 would definitely win, but again, you never know. I'll be very interested to see what happens with this one. The next one is quite a difficult one that I probably would even struggle a little bit with. It's Toy Story 3 versus Toy Story 4. Two fantastic films in my opinion, so yeah. Let's go and see what people say about this one. And then finally, we have two sequels against each other that aren't necessarily sequels, as in they don't just have a number 2 at the end of their titles. They're just films that came out in relation to the first film, like in the same universe, if that makes sense. So this one is Monsters University versus Finding Dory. Again, I'm very interested to see how this one goes because I feel like both of them got kind of mixed reactions when they came out. I think for me it would have to be Finding Dory, but I did enjoy Monsters University as well. So there we have it. They are all sent now. Every single poll is there out in the open for my followers on Instagram to hopefully vote on. I've been recording this for about 20 minutes, so some of these polls, especially the earlier ones, would have already been up for a while. So I'm going to quickly have a look to see how the polls are doing so far. Oh my god, so Inside Out and Coco are very, very close to each other right now. Inside Out is at 43%, Coco at 57%. Bear in mind, it's only been up for like 13 minutes. Wow, okay. I'm surprised at some of these so far. Like, interesting. I'm not going to give you everything away yet because I think it'll be more fun to just wait until tomorrow to give you the final results. But obviously, if you want to participate in polls like this in the future and see the results as they happen, all you have to do is follow me on Instagram. As you can see here, Sam for God. I post a lot about Disney and theatre in my life, and I do a lot of polls as well when I get bored. That's it for now. We're going to wait for 24 hours and I'm going to come back to you tomorrow. So it is the next day. It has been 23 hours so far since I put the polls up, and the results so far have been really, really interesting. I kind of doubt that too much is going to change in the next half hour or so before the polls completely end. By the way, I am wearing the same t-shirt as yesterday. It's because we're still kind of in lockdown, so I'm not really going anywhere, so I'm trying to not waste new t-shirts when I'm not really, you know, making the most out of them, if that makes sense. So many people voted, so thank you. If you were somebody who voted in these polls, you've helped me make this video in some way. I think it's the most amount of people who've ever voted in any of my polls, to be honest. I had so many DMs from you guys being like, oh my god, don't make me choose between these two films, or these are my two favorite Pixar films, why are you doing this, I can't pick. I had quite a lot of stressed DMs from you guys, and I understand because that was the whole point. I purposely put films against each other that I thought were quite equal in terms of how much they're loved and stuff, and for the most part, I mean, I'm gonna show you the results in a second, but they were more or less equal. Like, there were a couple of them that were more or less 50-50 throughout most of it, and it's only now in the past few hours that one of them's finally starting to win a little bit. So I feel like I did good with the polls. But anyway, just so you know, on average about 1,500 people voted in all these polls. That is quite a lot, considering I've got just over 5,000 followers at the moment on my Instagram. For that amount of people to be voting is a lot. Normally I get maybe about 800 people or 900 at a push voting in my polls, so 1,500? Thank you. Anyway, the results are in for the first round of the Battle of Pixar films. Do my audience prefer Inside Out or Coco? Now, you might be able to see here, Coco ended up winning by only like 6% really. So it was a pretty close win, but to be fair, from the very start, I was monitoring the polls and Coco was a bit ahead from the very start, so Inside Out was never ahead of Coco. But it is very close, and I personally love both of them. I do prefer Inside Out personally, but I think they're both beautiful. They would both be in my top 5 favorite Pixar films anyway. Next we have Finding Nemo or Wally. Now this one surprised me. I thought Wally was going to have way more fans because, I mean, I don't personally love Wally, but I know a lot of people really love it, so I just assumed it would be a bit more equal. But as you can see here, Finding Nemo won by quite a bit, you know, 79% to Nemo, and Wally only got 21%. So I guess people do love Wally, but they just prefer Finding Nemo. Next we have Up versus Ratatouille. Now this one was the one that I got the most amount of DMs about. A lot of people were like, oh my god, I can't choose between these two, like, Lord have mercy, why are you making me do this? Sorry guys, it's just for a video. But yeah, this one was pretty close as well, but Ratatouille was always ahead. So as you can see here, Ratatouille won with 54% and Up got 46%, so very very close, both very good films. I'm glad Ratatouille won though, because that would be my personal favourite as well between the two. Next one, now this one was very interesting. As you can see, this is The Incredibles and Brave, and when I first put the poll up, for the first like 12 hours or so of the poll being up, Brave was winning. It was ahead. It wasn't winning by a lot, but it was like still ahead of The Incredibles, and I was actually surprised because as much as I love Brave and I love The Incredibles as well, I just assumed that a lot of people would prefer The Incredibles, so I thought this was going to be an easy win for The Incredibles, but it wasn't. It was only today when I woke up that I finally saw that The Incredibles has now taken the lead, and as you can see here, it's still not by much, you know, 52%. It's only 2% more than Brave. So yeah, up until last night before I went to sleep, I thought Brave was going to win this, but there you go, we've got The Incredibles, and I think, to be fair, it does make more sense because I think generally speaking The Incredibles is a slightly more well-loved film than Brave. So yeah, next we have The Good Dinosaur versus Onward, and Onward, as you can see here, has 60%, The Good Dinosaur has 40%. This does make me sad a little bit because I feel like more people have seen Onward. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like The Good Dinosaur, honestly, hardly anyone saw it, and I think this is a case where some people would have only seen Onward because it's more recent and it's available on Disney Plus, so they probably just thought, I'm gonna say Onward because it's more like fresh in their minds as well. I personally think The Good Dinosaur is the slightly better film between the two. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a fan of Onward at all. Like, I thought it was beautiful visually, but I just thought, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I think it's Pixar's worst film, excluding Cars, because I haven't really seen any of the Cars films apart from the first one, so I can't judge. Speaking of Cars, the next one here is A Bug's Life versus Cars, and this one I thought was gonna go to Cars as well, to be honest, because as much as I love Bug's Life, and obviously I would definitely go for Bug's Life between these two, I know that Cars has a massive fan base as well, so I'm kind of surprised that Bug's Life won this one. But as you can see, again, it's not by too much. Bug's Life got 55% and Cars got 45%, so not like a massive win, but I'm happy that Bug's Life gets to go to the next round. Next we have Cars 2 versus Cars 3, and Cars 2 won by quite a bit, 61% to Cars 2 and 39% to Cars 3. Now, I haven't seen either of these films. Like I said, I might have watched a bit of Cars 2, but I don't really remember it. But for some reason, I had it in my head that Cars 3 would be more popular, because normally the middle film in a trio franchise tends to be the least popular one. Like, normally the last one is always really good and the first one is really good and the middle one's just a bit meh. So I'm surprised that people seem to love Cars 2 a lot more than Cars 3, but again, I have not seen either of them properly, so I can't really judge. Next, we have Toy Story 2 versus Incredibles 2. Now, this one surprised me a little bit as well. I mean, I know that people love Toy Story, but I do know that people also love The Incredibles, and I know that when Incredibles 2 came out a few years ago, people really raved about it, so I thought it was going to be a bit more equal. I knew Toy Story 2 would win, but I just didn't expect it to win by this much. So as you can see here, Toy Story 2 got 82% and The Incredibles 2 only got 18%, so that's a big win to Toy Story 2, well done. Then we have the big one for me, which is Toy Story 3 versus Toy Story 4. Now, this is a really hard one for me as well, but I think I personally prefer Toy Story 4. I've definitely watched Toy Story 4 more, like ever since it came out last year, and it's only been out just over a year, so it's still pretty recent. I've seen it so many times. I went to see it in the cinema, I think about 5 times, and I've seen it at home quite a few times as well. It's a really good film. I think Forky really makes it, and Woody, you guys know he's my favorite character, so I just love following his journey and seeing him change and realize that he doesn't always have to be the way he was. I think it's just such an important message. So I do prefer Toy Story 4 personally, but I know that when it came out last year, a lot of people, you know, it seemed to divide a lot of people. So a lot of people seem to think that Toy Story 3 should have just finished then, with Toy Story 3 being the last one in the franchise, and some people like me were pretty happy with Toy Story 4. So yeah, Toy Story 3 obviously got the popular vote with 65%, and I'm not surprised and I'm happy for it, because Toy Story 3 is a very good film as well. Now, this is a big one. This is Toy Story versus Monsters Inc. I got quite a few comments about this one as well, saying that they find it impossible to vote between these two, and it made me happy that I picked them together. But yeah, Toy Story won this one with 55% of the votes, and Monsters Inc. got 45%, which is again pretty close. I expected it to be a little bit more towards Toy Story. I don't know, I just thought because Toy Story is the original film. I knew like Monsters Inc. has a lot of fans as well, but I just thought it might be more like 65% to Toy Story and like 35% to Monsters Inc. But I'm surprised at how like close it is. But yeah, there you go, Toy Story the original did win. I love both of these films, but of course my vote would go for Toy Story as well. And then last but not least, we've got another one that was very, very close throughout the whole time. I couldn't really predict where it was going to go, but this is Monsters University versus Finding Dory, and as you can see, Finding Dory ended up winning with 51%. That is, I think, the closest any of these polls have been. 51, just 1% more than Monsters University. Not gonna lie, I'm happy because I really do love Finding Dory, but I would have been happy either way because I think Monsters University is also a really good film. I think these two films are actually very, very equal, and I think think that's why the polls are so close to each other as well, because they're probably the most equal in terms of how good they were of the polls that I've made. So there you go, we've got the winners of each round. That means now we've got 11 Pixar films that could be going to the next round. However, because 11 is not a round number, and it's going to make it really hard for me to put like 11, you know, films, you know, up against each other, because one of them would always be left out. What I'm going to do, I thought really hard about how I can like eliminate one of them, and initially I was just going to like get Google to choose one of these films randomly so I could eliminate them and not take them to the next round. But I thought the fairest way to do this is to go through the polls and see which one of these wins of the 11 films that won their individual polls got the least amount of votes, if that makes sense. And unsurprisingly, the Pixar film that won with the least amount of people voting for it was Cars 2. Cars 2 got 573 votes and Cars 3 got 358 votes. So whilst, yeah, Cars 2 did win, almost all the other films in their individual polls that won got at least like 800 votes, so they had quite a lot of votes to actually win. And my prediction is because not many people saw Cars 2 and Cars 3, so they just probably skipped this poll and didn't even vote in it, which makes Cars 2 the least popular win of all the polls, if that makes sense. So I think that's the most reasonable way to do it, because all the other ones had a lot more votes for them to win. So Cars 2 is now eliminated as well, and now we have 10 Pixar films left that I'm going to put against each other again, and those are Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Ratatouille, Coco, The Incredibles, Finding Dory, Onward, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3. So I'm just gonna need some time to play around with them for about 5 minutes or so to kind of figure out which ones I should put against each other between all the ones that we've got left now. Create the polls, upload them, and I'll get back to you. Okay, I'm back, and I have decided what film needs to go against what film, in my opinion anyway. I'm about to do a little Instagram story just to let everyone know that we're on round 2 now, and then I'll post all the polls and you'll see what films will what. Round 2. Let's go. Okay, that weird little intro has been done now. Okay, so for the first poll of this round, I have put Toy Story against Finding Nemo. I think these two films are probably the most popular films of Pixar that I hear about. Like, I feel like when you ask people what their favorite Pixar film is, people normally answer with one of these films. So I think it's a fair comparison. Let's put it. Next, I've put Ratatouille against Coco. Now this one, Lord have mercy. I don't know how I would vote in this myself, to be honest. I love both of them equally, I think. Ratatouille just has such a special place in my heart, and then Coco is so beautiful. Like, I cried so much when I first watched it in the cinema, so I think it makes sense to put them together because in my opinion they're pretty equal. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. Next, I've put A Bug's Life versus The Incredibles. Again, I think it kind of makes sense. A Bug's Life was the second ever Pixar movie that came out, and The Incredibles came out quite a long time ago as well, so it's had time for people to kind of enjoy them both and become a household of favorites film for people. I have a feeling The Incredibles is going to win, but you know, I still think it's pretty fair, so let's go with this. Next, I've put Finding Dory versus Onward, because again, I feel like they're the most equal I could think of from the films that I had left. I'm really curious to see which one of these wins actually. Don't think I can predict. I want to say Onward might win because again it's more recent, but Finding Dory is so good. I guess there's only one way to find out. And then for the very last poll in this round, of course I have Toy Story 2 versus Toy Story 3. It makes sense. They're both Toy Stories, they're both sequels. I have a feeling Toy Story 3 is going to win, but again, I'm very interested to see how you guys vote in this. And that's it. I'm going to wait another 24 hours and I'll get back to you tomorrow with the results of this poll, or these polls should I say, because there's 5 of them. It's a new day. It is the next day. It's been exactly 23 hours, so just over 23 hours since I posted the last polls. I have to say with this round they haven't really changed too much. Like from the start, one of the films was kind of winning and it's kind of stayed that way, but they are still pretty close, some of them. It is time to reveal the results of the second round of the polls. So with Toy Story and Finding Nemo, Toy Story won with 67%, as you can see here, and Nemo got 33%. I kind of knew Toy Story would win. I thought the best film to put against Toy Story was going to be Nemo, but I still knew that Toy Story would win. With Ratatouille and Coco, Ratatouille ended up winning with 54% and Coco got 46%. Now this one was very, very close. Like, Ratatouille was always in the lead, but only by a little bit. Like, there was a point when Ratatouille had 51% and Coco had 49%. And for me, this is the hardest poll because I love both of them and I genuinely don't know which one I would vote for if I was participating in this. I think I would go for Coco though. I don't know. They both mean a lot to me. Ratatouille is so beautiful and it brings back so many memories for me as well. But then Coco is a gorgeous film and I cannot ever watch it without crying. I think it's so beautiful. So yeah, it was a tough one. And again, I had quite a few DMs from you guys telling me that you're finding this one in particular really hard. Then we had A Bug's Life versus The Incredibles, and of course Incredibles did win with 58%. I'm kind of surprised, I have to say. I thought The Incredibles would win by a bigger percentage, but I guess some people really like A Bug's Life, which I'm really happy about because I like it too. I think it's quite an underrated Pixar film. Finding Dory versus Onward is the next one, and Finding Dory won by 68%. I have to say I'm a little bit surprised by this one, but I guess one of the reasons is because maybe not enough people have watched Onward, and people just seem to be more familiar with Nemo's world than Dory, just generally speaking. I don't know. In any case, I'm happy Finding Dory won because I am not the biggest fan of Onward at all. And last but by no means least, we had Toy Story 2 versus Toy Story 3, and Toy Story 2 won this with 54%. I have to say this one was the one that took me by the most surprise. I just always thought that people, generally speaking, prefer Toy Story 3 to Toy Story 2. Maybe I was wrong. I personally think I prefer the third one to the second one because the third one has that scene at the end with Andy giving his toys away, and it's just so emotional. I guess maybe people prefer the adventures that take place in the second one. I mean, both of them are very, very good films, don't get me wrong. I just always assumed the third one was more popular, but apparently it's not. So there you go. We do have the 5 winners from this round. So it's Toy Story, Ratatouille, The Incredibles, Finding Dory, and Toy Story 2. Once again, in order to be able to proceed to the next round, I need to get rid of one of these ones because it's an odd number, there's 5 of them, and to be able to put 2 against each other, you need 4. So I'm going to do the same as I did last time, and I'm going to go and see which one of these wins had the least amount of actual votes. And that film, unfortunately, I've just checked, is actually Toy Story 2. 420 people voted for Toy Story 2. 364 people voted for Toy Story 3. So from what I've seen, this poll was the one that the least amount of people voted in general. It could just be because people just couldn't decide, you know, which of the Toy Stories they preferred. Maybe they just didn't care enough to actually vote in them. But there you go, Toy Story 2 is now eliminated. Which means our final 4 Pixar films are Toy Story, Ratatouille, The Incredibles, and Finding Dory. 4 pretty strong contenders, I'm not gonna lie. Finding Dory is the most like weird one in my opinion. I feel like if I'd done the polls differently, maybe instead of Finding Dory we would have Finding Nemo there. But I don't know, maybe people just really do love Finding Dory. It is a really good film, I love it. So it's time to make new polls for the penultimate round. I think I'm gonna put Toy Story against The Incredibles and Ratatouille against Finding Dory. I think that's the one that makes the most sense. If I put Toy Story against Finding Dory, Toy Story is definitely gonna win. If I put Toy Story against Ratatouille, I still feel like Toy Story is going to win by a big percentage. The Incredibles is the oldest of the films after Toy Story, so it's had more time again to become a favorite amongst Disney fans. So I think The Incredibles has the biggest chance of potentially beating Toy Story. Not that it's going to win. I feel like Toy Story is going to win against whatever film I put it. But yeah, I think it makes sense. And then Finding Dory against Ratatouille, I think that makes sense as well. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, I have just posted the 2 polls. I can't believe there's only 2 polls now. I'm interested to see how these go, but I have a feeling that like Toy Story is definitely going to beat The Incredibles and Ratatouille is probably going to win against Finding Dory. So these are my predictions. I hope they go differently because it'll be exciting to see them be different. But yeah, that is it for now. I guess I'm going to have to wait another 24 hours and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hello, so it's the next day and it's 8:20, which means I somehow like forgot to screenshot basically the results of the polls from yesterday right before they disappeared from my Instagram, which sucks a bit. However, I do have a screenshot of them only about an hour after I put them up, and I can guarantee you that not much really changed in terms of the percentages. Like between Toy Story and The Incredibles, it was a clear win for Toy Story from the start, and it more or less stayed this way until the very end because I kept checking it. I just forgot to screenshot it. And with Ratatouille and Finding Dory, it was more or less the same. I was actually kind of surprised as to how well Finding Dory did, but it never, you know, reached even 40%. Finding Dory was still only ever in the 30s. And so again, Ratatouille won against Finding Dory by quite a big percentage. So there we have it. We've got the 2 finalists, Toy Story and Ratatouille. 2 phenomenal films, 2 very well loved films, and 2 of Pixar's best films in my opinion. So I'm about to put the final poll up. I've already had a few people DM me to say, oh my god, I don't know what I'm going to vote for, if it's going to end up being Toy Story and Ratatouille, because I think people could clearly see from the polls yesterday that, you know, those 2 were winning. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one goes. Guys, I'm too happy with my last Instagram story for this poll. YouTube's probably going to give me copyright, but you know, it doesn't matter. I still want to show it to you. Hopefully it should be fine. Let's have a look. Okay, that's all you're gonna get because hopefully that's not too much and YouTube will not give this video a copyright streak. Why did I say streak? I meant strike. You know what I mean. This is it, guys. This is it. I'm about to post this on my story. So woo. There you go. That should hopefully now be there. And we've already have the first poll. Shout out to my friend Beth Fox. Yeah, I guess I'll speak to you tomorrow. So it's a few days later. My hair obviously looks different because I cut it earlier today, so it's a bit shorter just because, you know, I felt like I had to address the elephant in the room before continuing. And of course the results are in for the best Pixar film ever according to you guys. Now if you remember, the final 2 Pixar films were Toy Story and Ratatouille, and it was a tough battle, guys. I had people, some of my followers, literally sending their followers to vote in my poll for Ratatouille because they wanted to give Ratatouille a chance to win. Like, Ratatouille has a lot of dedicated, strong fans, and so does Toy Story, but Toy Story was, of course, always in the lead with this one. From the very start, it was always about 18% or so ahead of Ratatouille, and whilst Ratatouille fans did try their very hardest, and again, I also had quite a lot of DMs from people being like, oh my god, don't make me choose between Toy Story and Ratatouille. Eventually, unsurprisingly, the winning title did go to Toy Story. I'm very happy. As you guys know, Toy Story is my favorite film of all time, so in a way, I'm happy that you guys all agree with me. I'm not too surprised. I always thought that Toy Story had a bit of an advantage just anyway because it's the very first Pixar like feature film length out there. It's a great film. I'm very happy. I feel like I've proved something by doing these polls. It's almost like I've proved that, you know, my love for Toy Story is valid and there's a reason why I love it so much. But yeah, this was very, very fun. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope you enjoyed taking part in the polls as well. Thank you so much if you did take part. You low-key made this video happen, so yeah. Thank you. If you would like me to do videos like this in the future, a couple of you did actually suggest that I should do a similar video putting the different attractions at Disneyland Paris against each other in the polls and seeing what you guys think of those. But yeah, if you want me to do anything more like this, leave a comment down below and let me know. Like the video so I know that you didn't fully hate this. Even if Toy Story is not your favorite Pixar film, just like it for the fun of it. Like it for my new hairstyle and the fact that I'm wearing this awesome Toy Story 4 t-shirt. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. I come up with random videos like this on a regular basis, so I will see you in the next video. Bye!